So, to kick things off, let's talk about, some light topics like what happens to us after we die. In Azeroth or other worlds of Warcraft, anyway. So, when death comes,
Zobaczcie, czy
a
możecie kliknąć
soul
tego streama
crosses between
na pogadankach.
life and death. Spirit healer makes that determination, and a winged
Souls
warrior
cross the
becomes
way
the
between
soul
life
of the
and death.
Shadowlands. And souls come before a mysterious entity, an ancient entity.
Czyli
known
umrę, ale
only
będę żyła
as
dalej.
the Arbiter.
No tak.
The Arbiter, since time immemorial, has functioned in this capacity.
Działa stream?
And when that soul comes before
Weźcie ciebie
her,
kliknij.
Nie będę ci nawijał wyświetleń.
Kurwa, dawaj donaty.
every one of the contents of that soul is laid bare before her.
Jeb, nagle, złoty 99.
The thoughts, the aspirations, the triumphs, and the failures are felt, absorbed, and understood by the Arbiter. And the Arbiter sends that soul off to a destination realm, to one of the infinite realms of the Shadowlands, each one of which is ruled over by a powerful covenant, a ruling force within the Shadowlands. Also, and this will matter more in a second, but each
Jeszcze
soul
minuta
brings with it
do ogólnie
a
akcji.
powerful source of energy.
Weź kliknij
known
na
as
linka
anima.
na Discordzie, na
This is a
pogadankach.
vital force that is
No
the
już
product
patrzę.
of all of that soul's experiences,
Pogadanka.
all that they have done in life. Great souls, whether for good or for evil, have a lot of anima, and ones who live
Pogadanki.
smaller, more humble lives have less. But folks like Varian, Garrosh, certainly Arthas, the former Lich King, they had a ton. And
Działacie?
anima is the mana. It is
Już
the,
klikam.
ironically, the lifeblood of the Shadowlands. In this land of death, it's the force that
no.
makes the trees here grow and rivers flow. It's the source that's drawn upon to conduct the magic of
Działa,
death,
działa, jest,
and much
wszystko
more.
jest.
And that's going to be essential to understanding this world. So as I mentioned, the Shadowlands has infinite realms, but our journey initially will focus on a few of them. We see Revendreth,
Czemu bez napisów,
Ardenweald,
halo?
Bastion, and Maldraxxus as four
Co?
major realms. Oribos,
No nie ma
a
napisów, a to
city
mam
which
już
stands
napisy?
in the center of it all,
Możesz ten
and
tłumaczyć
this
w trakcie, co?
mysterious region
Ej,
known
sporo
only
nowych
as the Maw.
lokacji będzie w sumie.
Let's start talking about
Jakie
it.
sporo.
5 albo
So
6.
first off, Bastion. Now this, for each of these zones, I'm going to
Okay.
start by showing a piece of our internal concept art that helped define the look and the feel of the zone, and then we'll see how that turned into reality within the game. So this piece, which I'm sure you're all seeing for the very first time ever as an exclusive part of
Napisy są
BlizzCon,
chujowe.
reflects our artist's early take on the splendor of Bastion. Bastion is ruled over by the Kyrian Covenant. Now, the Kyrian are the forebears of the Valkyr and the Spirit Healers and more. The Kyrian are ordered and purposeful, and the souls that find their way here, that are sent here by the Arbiter, are ones that had some natural
Po co zakład, że
calling to
Kyrianami
service
będzie
in
można
one
zagrać
form
później
or
jako
another.
Ally Tracer?
Come
Wampirami.
here
Wampirami.
będzie
to
można
assume
było.
their ascended role as a Kyrian.
Ale
souls
Kyrian
have
wy-
burdens.
Ale zajebiście
What
wygląda.
goes on in Bastion is
Ale
meditation,
skrzydła ma.
reflection,
Kyrian to jest ten duch, który jak
understanding
umieracie przy cmentarzu,
self
ludzie.
through combat and other
Nie
means
można tym
to
mówić.
shed those burdens and be ready to ascend to an eternity
To
of
jest ona?
service in the
Wampirami
Tak, to-
zagra.
to jest ta
as
rasa.
a Valkyr or a Spirit Healer or one of a couple of other paths. An example of a soul that might be familiar to us who ended up in Bastion is Uther, the Lightbringer. And we will be encountering him, among others, in our journey through Bastion.
Same nerdy się.
And of course, if you haven't had a chance to check it out yet, Bastion is the zone that's playable here on the show floor today.
Chciałbym być, nie pierdolę.
Uter.
So here is a look at some of the environments of Bastion, glowing, resplendent,
Stormiem.
very much
Uh-huh.
distant from the dark
Ah,
and dreary
fajne.
images that might have been conjured up when you first heard the words Shadowlands. The land of death is not all dark.
No Midgard, no.
Distinction there. Next, a bit of a darker place.
O, to
The
moje.
zone of Maldraxxus.
Tam będziesz spędzać czas?
as
Tak.
initially
To
defined
jest
in
mój
this
dom, to jest
concept,
mój pokój, oglądam.
is ruled over by the Necrolord Covenant, and it reflects the heart of the Shadowlands' military might.
Ja tam HS-a sobie ustawię.
Defend the Shadowlands from external forces and wage war on the enemies of
A
death.
Civer, twoje zdjęcie, popatrzcie.
These are the forces that were called upon
Co?
by
To
the
tutaj
Lich
jeszcze jest ten
King,
mały zielony, nie?
by his servants kill Khuzad and
Nie.
others. And we've seen a piece of that. Now, while at a glance, okay, undead, rot, decay, this seems like, okay, these are all evil guys. That's not necessarily what Maldraxxus
Co
is
to
about.
kurwa jest?
While this power certainly can be used,
Jaja
evil,
Ciwer.
at its core really is more about just a relentless spirit.
Ale który to achiever?
Search and pursuit of
Gadnij.
power, strength, inward and outward. And an example of a soul that ended up in Maldraxxus is actually the warlord Draka, mother of Thrall, who, while certainly not an evil, wicked soul, was one who would never
Nie
kneel,
rozumiem tego, co tam
never
będę
bow
kurwa, co
before
będę
another.
robił.
And she has actually
Co to jest to
ascended to
example
positions of
soul?
prominence
Bił repę.
in Maldraxxus,
Czyli
as
taka
we'll
babka,
discover
która
when we journey
do
there.
tego... do
Take a
tego
couple of
klanu
look
powiedzmy
at how
należy,
this
nie?
is coming together. Now, if you think of Legion as the old Burning Crusade look and feel dialed up to 11, Maldraxxus is very much Eastern Plaguelands, the Scourge,
Brzydkie
and
to
more
takie szare.
taken to the nth degree. This is the source of that power and much more. Next,
Dawać te z jeleniami, to jest piękne.
Ardenweald
No to chyba.
is an enchanted
O, zobaczcie.
fairy forest, and that's what
Underwood,
we're setting
kurwa.
out to create. And this concept by our environment team really helped define that look
Oni
and the
byli w
general
tym,
vibe
w
that we're
dylorze,
going for.
ci ludzie roślinki.
Now, Ardenweald is ruled over by the Night Fae.
A Ciwer, popatrzcie, kopyta ma i futro.
We are familiar with the Emerald Dream. Those
O,
of you who are druids, maybe
To jakiś
more so.
opóźniony jestem chyba.
And if we think of the Emerald
też.
Dream as a
No to zobaczymy jego
reflection
streama,
of
będzie na żywo.
the spring and the summer, part of nature's cycle,
Nie,
Ardenweald
brzydki.
reflects autumn and winter.
Taki dra.
Wróżki, kurwa,
To
jego ma.
wygląda jak down.
But also a preparation for eventual rebirth.
Powiem tak, to jest kolejna pedalska rasa dla luchów.
And spirits of nature are the ones who are called powerfully to Ardenweald, and most of them come here to rest and to prepare to serve the wilds once more. An example of a
W końcu nie
powerful
będzie
soul
połączenia
who
Ali
ended
z
up in
Hordą?
Ardenweald
Będzie.
is actually the
Będzie,
demigod
tak?
Cenarius. When he
Nie.
fell before the axes
No,
of
Cenarius,
Brahmash Hellscream
Jezus.
and his
To
band
nas
of
gubi.
felons
Na pewno- na
used
pewno-
Ta rada, hordy.
soul
O,
passed
jaka
into
piękna, patrz jaka
Ardenweald,
piękna. A
where
cię
he
brabuś,
rested
nie?
and recovered.
O, wyszarpał, o kurwa.
Served the wilds.
Nie ocenia się po wyglądzie, halo.
No właśnie.
Ty, jakieś opóźnienie mam, kurwa.
Gdzie? Na moim
O,
streamie?
matko.
Może to twoja przyszła żona.
Ale to jest facet, kurwa, Hazaki.
You look up in Ardenweald, you're looking at the underside of canopies
Jakbyś
of
wszedł, to
magical
chłopie.
ancient trees that almost look
Co bym wszedł,
staring up at
kurwa.
the night sky.
Łbem w ścianę chyba.
Parts of Ardenweald that aren't faring quite as well. That also
Bad.
reflect some sorts of powers that we may have seen recently, especially for those of you who are playing
That's
Alliance in
interesting.
Battle for Azeroth. Because Ardenweald is also deeply connected to the Drust, who come from the land of death.
Chyba
O.
wejdę
Revendreth.
Vampiry.
Revendreth is
Ah.
awesome. It's
twój...
basically just a creepy,
Nie, mam
gothic
szybciej.
zone.
Castlevania.
Miasma,
Pamiętaj,
soaring castles,
link do
villages in
PayPala
the
masz w
shadow,
opisie.
and
No już,
terrors and horrors
wysyłam
lurking
ci te
around
5
every
złotych,
corner.
kurwa, masz.
Revendreth is ruled over
Tylko nie wydaj na
by
głupotę.
Ventnir. This is
Dobrze, mamo.
our fourth major covenant.
To
Na
buty nie
żywo.
pasują do...
Ty, ale te wampirki są zajebiste.
Place that you would want to go or hope to go as a soul passing into the Shadowlands.
Ja się
The
będę
souls
bał
that the
tam
Arbiter has
chodzić.
sent to Revendreth over the years tend to be the ones that have some flaw.
Myślałem, że one mają
whether
dobre
it's
ssanie.
pride or
Prideful
some other
souls.
problem that's kind of blocking them,
Dobre
that's
ssanie.
hindering their ability to serve the Shadowlands in one of the other known paths. And they come to Revendreth to atone, to do penance for their misdeeds, and potentially to be redeemed, and to move on to one
To
of the other
Jaina,
realms.
widzieliście? Jaina?
Or perhaps not. It's not a particularly fun place to be, but it's
30
an
lat
essential
później,
part of the engine of death that is the
To w tych
Shadowlands.
Shadowlandsach już.
An example
Jaina
of a
po
soul
roku w Rosji.
here, whom we will encounter in our journeys, is none other than Kael'thas Sunstrider.
O, Keltas tam jest, popatrzcie.
Żyje.
Who,
Ten
you know,
muzyn,
after a
widzicie go?
setback
Ani
or
go nie
two,
widać.
found his
Ciekawe,
way
czy zrobią tak, że
to
tylko
this
do
dark
jednego
land.
możesz przynależeć.
No tak.
So here we see, you know, just sort of
Będzie
a
tak jak
look
z tymi
at the
followersami
landscape,
na
the
zjatarze.
silhouette of the spires,
Miesiąc
the
robisz
surrounding
jeden,
environment.
później
No,
drugi, trzeci,
no, no, no,
czwarty.
no.
This is one of my favorite zones. I can't wait to explore it.
ale
I
tam jest
can't
fajny
wait for
klimacik.
all of you to check it out.
Mgła jest, zajebiście.
There are also parts of
Kiedy
Revendreth
Rastfar.
where the light has actually broken through the clouds and seared the earth and Some are actually
A
caged
tam
up
jaki
here,
chodzi typ.
because exposure to the light does horrible, horrible things to many of the souls of this land. Okay, so I've used the word covenant a whole
O
lot.
właśnie, o to ciekawe.
What is a covenant? So a covenant is the ruling power of the Shadowlands. There are 4 major ones we're going to be encountering: the Kyrians in Bastion, the Necrolords in Maldraxxus, the Night Fae of Ardenweald, and the Venthyr of Revendreth, as described. Covenants are also really the #1 major feature of Shadowlands. I think in Battle for Azeroth, we had a few different smaller features. We had islands, we had the Heart of Azeroth, we had warfronts. Covenants are more like a garrison or an artifact in the sense of being what we call internally a build-around feature. They're integrated into every aspect of the game, and they're an essential part of your journey, your progression, your power, and more. Each of these covenants, as you encounter them in your journeys, will seek your aid, because you are a powerful, mighty hero who comes with some unique abilities, seeing as you actually are tethered to the land of the living, and you are coming alive from Azeroth, which we'll get to in a second. And of course, in exchange for this, each one of them offers access
No
to their
dobra,
power
jak jestem
and a
undeadem.
variety of rewards. And so each of you will have to make
To
a thoughtful
koniec,
choice.
suwaj.
Which covenant
Umrzesz
will
3
you
razy,
join?
czy masz problem?
Let's take a look at what that will mean for you. So a covenant entails multiple things. First off, each covenant has its own large narrative endgame arc. So in Battle for Azeroth, we had the Horde War campaign and the Alliance War campaign. In Shadowlands, we have 4 of those. Each one opens up at max level, depending on your choice, and will lead you through the world in different ways as you unravel the mysteries of the Shadowlands.
Nie, że będę musiał 4 alty robić.
Czemu 4?
Bo to 4 achievementy, no stary.
O,
O, popatrzcie!
Jaki zamek.
covenant also brings with it 2
No tak.
active abilities. One of these is class specific, it's a combat
O.
ability.
To nie
O.
można tego zrobić na jednej
The other
postaci?
one is
No.
a universal ability that all members of that covenant will share.
Chujowe.
And if you check out the demo
Ale pewnie
here
będzie można
today of
zmieniać
Bastion,
jakoś.
you can see
Będzie
the
góry
Kyrian
narzucone.
Śledź już,
Nie mam
śledź
czasu
już.
na-
mess around with them.
Guide już leci,
Next.
później wybierz najlepsze do swojej
Covenants bring with them an
klasy.
endgame progression
Tak,
system.
będzie
There's a
najlepiej.
ritual known
No.
as soul binding, where as a member of a covenant,
Tak jak
you
macie, wiesz,
can
ze
bond your soul
straightami.
to a powerful denizen of the Shadowlands, enhancing your
Esencją.
abilities, unlocking
To
new
będzie tak
ones,
samo.
and having a ton of customization there. At a glance, I know
Tylko
this
wiesz,
sounds
tutaj ty
like,
też wybierasz,
okay,
a
this is the
fabułę
artifact
to
system, this is the
4
Heart of
razy
Azeroth,
byś
this
musiała
expansion.
przechodzić.
In some ways, it builds
coś tam
upon
innego.
lessons learned from both of those. First and foremost, there is no artifact power to grind. This is not a...
Tak wszyscy klaszczą.
Klaszcze, no!
Honestly, like that was an essential starting point for us when designing the system. I think one of the lessons we learned from Legion onwards is there is something great about having endgame goals
Kim
and
on jest twórcą mowa?
customization and things to work towards, and to not just
gram
have
tam.
the
Tam
things that
głównym
modify
tym.
your character come to a
Pugiem.
screeching halt when
To
you
jest
hit max
pugiem.
level. The flip side is, despite systems of
A się
diminishing
śmiejecie, ale on
returns and the
naprawdę
other
na
things we had
TBC
in
robił
place
guidy,
in
jak
Legion
robić
and
rajdy i
BFA,
przez to go wzięli do
there's no
Blizzarda,
question
nie?
that there are social
Ten
pressures.
gościu.
There are things that make it
Są
feel
jeszcze
bad to
jego
play
filmiki na
alls, where
YouTube.
if you're not doing X amount of things every week, you feel like you're falling behind. You're letting your team down, or you're letting your own characters down. We want to have a world where you can have goals to work towards, customization, differentiation, without the grind. More details on this to come. We're going to be talking more about covenants in our deep dive panel tomorrow, but that's an essential piece of this.
Ale co z tymi artefaktami?
Czemu klaszczą?
Są downami.
And of course, alongside the power is also a wide array of
Resztę
cosmetic
się dowiedzą
rewards that
jutro.
each covenant has. You saw some of the armor sets in the expansion trailer, and there's a whole lot more beyond that. Each covenant also has a home base, effectively, a sanctum. This is a cross in some ways between the Legion class hall, but also the general feeling that you might have had back in Legion playing through Suramar and restoring Shalaran and building it up from this dingy, dusty, dark hole in the ground into a base with a teleportation network and allies that you'd recruited. And as you work to restore your covenant's power, you will benefit from that, but you'll also be making choices along the way.
Co?
Let's take a look at some of these rewards. So, if you join the Kyrian, let's say you're a warrior, this might be the plate set of armor that you can earn, a mount that you can earn. The active ability that all Kyrian warriors will have, Spear of Bastion. If you joined the Venthyr or you joined the Night Fae, you would have a different ability there. And Unburden,
Taki fajny,
a
szybki mod
utility
na
movement
chwilę.
ability that
Czysto.
all members of the Kyrian Covenant will have.
Pewnie dużo
With
łażenia.
Covenant rewards, we're also looking
Jak to
at
działa na
exploring
arenie,
some
to
new
kurwa
cosmetic
biorę, nie?
options. Recently we've seen a couple of fun cloak replacements in the form of a backpack or totems on the Tauren heritage armor. We want to do more with that, to really change the
300%
silhouette.
movement speeda.
So, different covenants.
O! Skrzydełka!
W
Siemanko.
końcu.
Czemu nie
I
klaszczą?
ludziom odpierdala, nie?
Each covenant will offer a set of cloak replacements or back attachments. So whether you want, a halo or a pair of wings, or depending on the different covenants that you're joining, a different aesthetic entirely, you can pick the one that best suits you.
Co to Diablo?
Okay, so covenants. Taking a step back, let's get back to the world for a moment. So I mentioned the 4 zones, each of which has a covenant, and at the center of it all rests Oribos. Oribos is a city that, again, predates memory. It is of an unknown construction, and it is the home of the Arbiter, this powerful, mysterious being that really fuels the machine that is
Będzie
the
stolica,
Shadowlands.
tak?
And that has drawn to it over
Raczej rajd.
millennia all manner of beings across the Shadowlands, and even some from other dimensions. Brokers and soul traders come here to wheel and deal. The politics of this entire dimension center on this bustling city at the heart of the Shadowlands.
Right?
And this will also serve as our sanctuary city, our main player hub in our
Oh,
adventures
no.
through the Shadowlands.
Miasto, nie?
Khadgar wanted to bring Dalaran
No,
through,
mówię.
but we figured
Przecież
it
znowu
was
by
already a city
Dalaran
there.
przenosili.
Not needed. Last zone. This mysterious place known as the Maw. So, to our knowledge anyway, there is no covenant. But our knowledge is very, very limited about this place. You see, the Maw is a swirling vortex of darkness, almost like a black hole.
To będzie raid.
And precious few
Na milion
souls
procent to będzie
over
raid.
the eons, the Arbiter would send directly into the Maw. Those were seen as the most tainted, the most
Demaf? To
irredeemable,
jest to, gdzie jest tam
the
Hejla?
darkest, most dangerous
Nie, to
souls
jest ten
that were
centrum tego
consigned to
Shadowlandsu.
the Maw, as much for their own potential
To jest
punishment
więzienie
as
takie
to
jakieś.
protect the
Mega
Shadowlands
więzienie.
from what they could otherwise bring with them. Thus, the Maw is a mystery.
Azkaban.
Było coś takiego,
even
Maw
the
of Soul.
Shadowlands, even the ancient ones. It's known to have, through whispers, a ruler known only as the Jailer. But the Jailer is almost like the boogeyman of the Shadowlands, right? It's the whispered figure of children's tales that, the big bad Jailer is going to get you locked away in the Maw. But basically, nothing is known because nothing has ever escaped the Maw. Journeying into the Maw is one way. Of course, we're going to have to go there, otherwise I wouldn't be telling you this.
Wiedziałem.
That's how it's going to
Się
work.
będzie umierać na końcu.
Okay, so what I just described is how the machinery of death has functioned throughout World of Warcraft's history, throughout the universe's history. But that's not how it's working right now. Death itself is broken. Instead of coming before the Arbiter and filtering out all the realms of the Shadowlands, all souls that have shuffled off this mortal coil in recent years have been pulled inexorably directly into the Maw, strengthening it, causing it to grow, to swell like a tremendous maelstrom. That also means that the other realms of the Shadowlands are starved of this essential force, anima, that souls bring with them. There's a drought afflicting the entire Shadowlands. The Shadowlands are withering as the Maw grows. Now, what is Sylvanas' role in all of this, you may wonder? Because she, after all, is the one who set these events in motion. And I know Sylvanas has been an enigma to many for a long time. She, at times, can be an inspiring figure, but then at other times, especially recently,
Królowa jest nasza.
it has seemed like her actions were calculated to cause the maximum.
Co jest? Jaina. Oj,
O!
No.
So yeah, slightly contentious issues here. At times recently,
Jedzenie
it
chyba
seemed like
tam
her
raz
actions were
noszę.
calculated to cause the maximum amount of death possible. What if they were? And who is this mysterious figure that we saw briefly a glimpse of in the expansion trailer earlier today? It's not Arthas. Arthas is dead. I'm sorry.
Ja wiem. Iridian.
But
A wygląda
But
trochę jak Anubarak, ale...
this is the mysterious jailer inside the maw. And this is not Sylvanas' master. She doesn't have a master. She is above that. She is beyond that. But this is a power with whom she is in league. They are partners with a common end.
Natanos
that we will
trochę
discover
przypakował.
in time. And many have wondered, how has Sylvanas grown so powerful in recent years? How did she go from a mighty Dark Ranger, but one who had to flee the Lich King back in Wrath of the Lich King when you confronted them in the dungeon, to one who could stand up, smite Saurfang, and face off against Bolvar? It's because through her allegiance to one of these Lords of Death, as the power of death has been growing, as the power of the Maw and the Jailer have been growing, so too have her own powers. And that is a taste of
Te
the
łańcuchy
power
tutaj
that she's
są,
drawn
nie? To
upon.
były te same łańcuchy, co ona była na
And that's
filmiku
part of what
używała
awaits us.
do pokonania.
Okay, now putting this all together. So,
Co, nie
expansion
powiedział, co to
launches,
jest.
just before the
Kolega
expansion
jej.
launches, we have,
No ten
pre-patch
klucznik.
events as we
Tyle powiedział.
enjoy having to get
Z
people
Notre
up to
Dame.
speed, get you caught up, maybe help leveling some alts here and there. This time around, as we've said, and as we've been told by Tyrannus, the Helm of Domination worn by the Lich King was essential to keep the undead of Azeroth in check, to keep them under control. Well, without it, what are they doing? They're rampaging across the world. And so this
Jailer
sort of
to
a Scourge
klucznik?
Invasion 2.0 that we're cooking up that will set
No,
the
bym się
stage
spodziewał.
for the journey that awaits us.
No to jest ten...
So in the weeks leading up to
strażnik więzienia,
Shadowlands, as the heroes of Azeroth
Dziwierny.
fight to
No.
defend their homes and families
Klawisz.
and friends
Dokładnie.
from the rampaging
Klawisz.
undead, they will also muster their forces to make for Icecrown and try to attack the source of this evil where it began. A key leader in this is actually going to be Bolvar himself. He did not die. He was defeated.
Co z tego, jak on
But
słaby jest?
he actually offers us some unique insight into this situation. Because
Ale
he
miał zajebisty
actually,
młot
more
na
than
transport.
any other being,
No.
has one foot in each realm and understands them both. When he was seared by the dragon fire of Alexstrasza, he was infused with the power and the energy of life. That's what was able to allow him to keep the powers of the undead at bay as he wore this helm. But having worn the helm, he has seen into the other world and understands what awaits us. And he and his Death Knights can also help us cross over into that world, to understand what's going on there, and to have a chance at saving our own. And so we will make for Icecrown, we will cross over, and we will end up in the Maw, because that's where everything that goes into the Shadowlands is going. And our journey ends there. It's a really short expansion. Now, that obviously not. So we, heroes of Azeroth, with a unique bond to the world soul of Azeroth herself, find
Wiem, że
ourselves
jedzenie
uniquely able to escape the Maw. Not all who come with us will be able to escape. Some of our friends and great champions of Azeroth will be trapped behind. But we escape, and we move on to Oribos, where we begin to learn about the nature of this new world and set out to level up through 4 zones, in order: Bastion, Maldraxxus, Ardenweald, and Revendreth. So unlike the last couple of expansions, we want to get back to having a strong narrative arc that can span multiple zones. And so all people entering the Shadowlands will go on this journey. As you do this, you're going to work with each zone's powers, with each zone's covenant. As you earn their trust initially, they'll let you borrow their powers, so you can actually play with the active abilities that you'll have down the line. You get a sense of what your covenant's ethos is, their aesthetic, and all this is as you're learning about the world, as you are trying to understand the foes that face you and defeat them, you're also getting prepared for a fateful choice. Which covenant do you want to join? Because that's the big choice that awaits you at max level. Exactly. You will choose one of them. And after joining that covenant, you have its powers permanently, your covenant campaign begins, and you move into the endgame. Now, that's how it's going to go your first time through. But what about alts, you may ask? So one of the big things that we got out
Oh,
of
so-
non-linear leveling in Legion and BFA was flexibility when you're leveling your alts. You can have a different journey on one character versus another. But what we lost was the ability to tell a single, strong narrative story. We want to get the best of both worlds this time around. So on your alts, once you have one character that's made it through this journey a single time, we want to say, well, we know, breaking the fourth wall for a second, that you as a player, you understand how the world works. We don't need to teach you how covenants work. We don't need to teach you about the Shadowlands. So let's just let you pick a covenant right away, if that's what you want to do.
To nie będzie trzeba się męczyć.
Tak.
And so you'll have
Okay,
access
thanks.
to their powers permanently. And on an alt, you can level up through any of the zones in any order that you want. You can do the narrative campaign, if that's what you want to do, or you could go to Revendreth first, or you could spam dungeons, or battlegrounds, or whatever. Endgame systems like world quests will also be available. Ultimately, it's about giving the maximum number of options. And finally, you're welcome.
Co ona powiedziała?
Nie wiem.
And finally, I think one of the questions we ask ourselves is like, well, obviously, one of the things we see with people playing alts is there's a sense of wanting to rush through to get to the end game as quickly as possible. And why is that? And it's not just a WoW issue, it's something that happens in many other games too. A lot of the time, once you've been to endgame, you realize that a lot of things before then don't matter. And so why spend your time on things that don't matter when you should rush and get to the things that do?
Trochę nie
Why does it
zrozumiałem
have to be that
chyba.
way? What if you could begin
Co, jak bierzesz
progressing on
postać,
your various
bierzesz
endgame
konwenant,
systems,
możesz ją drugi raz
unlocking
zacząć
powers
jakby?
with your soulbinds and more,
Czy po
as
prostu
you're
altem
leveling up?
wybierasz inne?
So of course you're still, you know,
No
getting
tylko
your
to
levels,
wybierasz
progressing through that
altem.
story, getting your character stronger, but the
Ten
progression that you earn
Covenant.
will matter at endgame, and you'll be
A
meaningfully
World
ahead of
Questy
where you were when you
Instant chyba
first hit
są
max level on your first
dostępne od
character.
razu.
Nie. A ciekawe jak to będzie z jakimiś innymi pierdolami.
No, ja bym chciał reputację
Okay,
wspólną.
Back to our
Nie
max level
dostaniesz
experience.
tego.
So we've seen a glimpse of them all.
Żeby na przykład nie było tak jak teraz, farmienia esencji,
No, ojej.
Visit a couple more times over the course of level up, learning a little bit more about it, since we have this unique power to go in and out.
A ja się zastanawiam,
Wszędzie
jak to jest,
level,
że bo tam są
what is the
skille,
law?
nie? No a
So
co będzie, jak na
law
przykład wybiorę
is
sobie wampirię, a będę chciał co innego? Mogę później
It's a
zmienić jakoś
fearsome,
to? kurwa?
terrifying place. We've been
Zobaczymy.
to those before. We go to those all the time, right? Like we literally, not
Chyba nie,
too
co
long
będzie nawet
ago, we
najlepsze,
were
nie?
fighting on the homeworld of the Burning Legion in the shadow of their great fortress. And coincidentally, we always manage to find a friendly innkeeper who will sell us water and let us bind our hearthstones. Doesn't matter how evil the place is, there's always that guy with the hearthstone. Not here. We really set out in the Maw, in the outdoor space, to build an environment that matches the fantasy of the space. Where when you go in here, you'll have to have your wits about you, because it's a place that wants to kill you at every corner. There are definitely some lessons drawn from revisiting classic spawning and things along those lines. And it's a
Zobacz, czy
chance
są
for us to
jeszcze
explore
wolne
some new
miejsca.
types of
Ja
outdoor
bym
world
tam
gameplay.
siedział.
We're going to have a lot more to say about this at our deep dive panel tomorrow, but I just wanted to tee it up. This is a place that you'll be going to only at max level, and you'll be delving in here to uncover the mysteries of Sylvanas, the Jailer, and much more. At the center of the Maw is this mysterious place called Torghast, Tower of the Damned. Yes, this is the tower that you saw sticking out of the sky above Icecrown Citadel. What does that mean in gameplay terms? I would call this our second major feature after Covenants. Because Torghast is a bit different from anything we've seen before. What Torghast is effectively an endless dungeon. It's ever-changing and defies the laws of reality in a lot of ways. Crafting Torghast, we looked for inspiration to a lot of our favorite roguelike games. And what does that
Rift
mean?
is Diablo.
It means an environment that changes each time you come there. When
Solo.
we create this experience, we want it to be one that you can
Solo?
enter
A ci
solo,
Mariusz się
or
podniesie,
with
bo może
friends.
solo grać.
If you want a sense of endgame progression that is meaningful and challenging, that doesn't require bringing a group with you, Torghast is there for you. Of course, if you want to bring your friends with you,
Co to
say
jest
no,
to?
you can do that too. As you ascend
Losowo
the tower,
generowany
Nieskończony
dungeon.
dungeon, trochę jak
from run
Rift
to
z
run,
Diablo.
from visit to visit,
A,
you can
Cały
earn
czas możesz replayować
permanent
sobie.
upgrades that you can take out with you, but also
O.
in the course of your visit, you'll be
Pewnie
able to
czym
observe
dalej, tym
powerful
lepsze nagrody.
concentrations of anima that massively change and enhance your powers. This is one of the other really fun parts of roguelike gameplay. It allows us to offer huge upgrades, transformative things that make each visit different from the next. You can play to
Tam
your
koleś
strengths,
usnął.
shore up your weaknesses, and much more. This is the thing we're going to talk a lot more about tomorrow, just teeing it up here. But just a random example of a choice that you may be faced with early on in your journey into Torghast. Let's say you're playing a shaman. You get a source of upgrades. You want some, passive damage and healing, which of course everyone wants.
Flame shock lasts
Or
forever.
a
Are you
permanent,
serious?
transformative
The
upgrade
fuck?
to one of your abilities that will last throughout the rest
Chyba
of your journey.
pojebało.
A different journey might offer different options and different upgrades. None is going to be quite like the others. The interior of
ostatni.
Torghast definitely calls upon the architecture that we saw in Ice Crown
Też nie
Citadel
przerażał.
and elsewhere, though as you ascend to the higher reaches of the tower, who knows what you're going to find. In addition to Torghast, we have 8 dungeons on offer, 4 for level up, 1 in each zone. Each of these dungeons, of course, comes with the normal modes, Heroic, Mythic, Mythic Plus, with all new affixes coming for each season in Shadowlands, and 4 max level dungeons. One of my favorites I want to call out here is this dungeon called The Other Side, or The Other Side in Ardenweald, which is a pocket dimension, home to none other than everyone's favorite Loa, Wansambi. So he's been quite the trickster, and we've never really known exactly whose side he's on or what he's up to and who he serves. And this is going to give us a
Wansambi
chance to
będzie w
explore that.
dungeonie.
It's a great opportunity to revisit one of our favorite
Co
characters.
będzie,
coming
bo
out of
byłem w
Valparaiso,
toalecie.
and of course,
Sandwine.
Wansambi
he is
jako
rooted
dungeon.
in the Shadowlands. We also have a 10-boss raid at launch called Castle Nathria.
No,
This was a
zamek
super fun
wampirów,
project for our
super.
dungeon team and our encounter designers. Like, the ask was literally just build Dracula's castle, make it a raid.
Kiedy przywrócą rajd
It's
40.
kind of writes
Nigdy.
itself. It's going to be pretty awesome.
Oby nie.
Here's an early layout as we're starting to figure out how it's going to flow. You'll come in the main front door of the castle for once you're
Aleru.
not coming in through the sewer. And it's a winged raid, so you'll have a choice of descending into the catacombs or exploring the royal
Oh,
quarters,
matko
each of which have
boska.
3 more bosses.
Tyle
Clear both
chodzenia.
of those wings, the upper reaches of the castle will become available as you
Przydadzą się te
ascend
monty
the
szybko.
upper spire to face the lord of the castle himself.
Ale to,
Tam raczej
to chyba nie
mounta
był
nie
mont,
użyjesz.
to chyba
So,
był skill,
talk
że
a lot
ty się
about
zmieniasz w
content,
monta i szybciej
talk a little bit
biegasz.
about systems.
Tak?
Tak jak
I'm gonna
pytałem
touch on
chyba
some
na
things
szybko, zanim to
briefly
znikło.
here that we're going to get into greater detail about
Z cooldownem 2
tomorrow with the
minuty
deep
albo
dive.
3.
But first,
Zmienia
let's
się
Jaina
really
tylko
znowu.
thought about all of these things.
Jaina!
Our
Ah,
core
kurwa.
philosophy, a central pillar, has been we want to increase player
Jaina po
agency.
przejściach.
We want to give all of you a feeling of more control over your destiny, whether that's in how you play your class, whether that's in how you chase the rewards that you want. We've heard a lot of your feedback. We've been hearing this for a while, and it hasn't fallen on deaf ears, I promise. I want to give a few examples of how this philosophy is influencing some of our decisions, and we'll have many more to follow. Big expansion systems and the nuances of how loot works, these are things we're going to keep iterating on over the course of development, so I don't have a fully fleshed out answer to provide right now, but I want to give you a direction of how we're thinking. So, one simple example first. Professions. So, right now, if you are a leatherworker or a blacksmith or a tailor and you want to make a pair of legs for yourself to wear using raid materials, you probably have a couple of stats in mind. Let's say you want crit haste pants. And so you're crafting, and whoops, you got mastery versatility pants. And you craft and salvage and craft until you get the ones you want. Why does it have to be that way? What if you could take a crit gem and a haste gem and add them as optional materials to your craft and be guaranteed to get a crafted item with the secondary stats you want?
O gemy użyteczne.
Tak będą
Koniec.
znowu
It's
gemy.
a small example. I realize that's not, fixing professions, but we also do very much want to make the armor crafting professions
Fajnie.
relevant in a deeper way at endgame. The weekly loot chest. Okay, is there any more
O.
hated example of
Tak.
RNG in World of
Tak,
Warcraft
tak.
today?
No właśnie, no.
Right?
Mam
You've
5
done your
od
mythic
520
you build your
rękawiczek,
conquest
kurwa,
bar, you
debilu.
go to open
Ja mam
this
same
chest,
pory.
and you're pulling from a loot table that has like 100 plus items and hoping that you get the item that you want in the slot that you
Dokładnie.
want with the stats that you want, and hopefully it's sockets and warforges or even titan
Ale-
forges.
O gruba się
and maybe
zgadza.
you can wear it. And most of the time, after the
Zjadła
first few weeks of
hamburgera.
the season, you're probably walking away disappointed. And that sucks. Because the point of that is to be a major reward moment. It's a payoff for something that you did in
No.
the past week. And because of randomness,
No.
that's falling short. And it's an example of randomness gone too far.
No.
Randomness can be healthy, but there are places where it really is excessive. We're looking at pulling that back where possible. So what if instead of the loot chest, there was some other device, some contraption that measured the things that you'd done, that had some sense of how many dungeons you'd done, of what difficulty, or what your PvP rating was, or what
Yeah,
bosses you
yeah.
bonus rolled.
Tak!
And it could instead materialize or create one of a list of items.
Dokładnie.
And instead of clicking the chest and it spitting out a random item, you saw 5 or 6 options to choose among. And you
O,
could pick the one that you wanted
jest,
most.
dobrze. W końcu.
To
O kurwa.
Chcę wybrać z 6 ciastów, które chcesz. W końcu.
That's the kind of thing we're aiming for, with also some universally relevant fallback option if you don't like any of those items, so that you always at least feel like you made some progress towards some goal, instead of walking away
Ale
disappointed.
tam też może być RNG.
o, legendy.
Bez-
Legendaries.
O,
So,
Nie.
okay, here's the Legion Legendaries were super fun. They were exciting items that transformed your gameplay. 99% of the complaints that we heard about Legion Legendaries were in how they were obtained. Having the Power Blast bracers was awesome. It made you play differently as a Fire Mage, and it was strong. Having Prydas, when the other Fire Mage in your raid group had the Power Blast bracers, and having nothing you could do to change that did not feel awesome. So, we want to bring Legendaries back in Shadowlands, but rather than have them be randomly obtained, we want them to be something that you can work towards actually crafting through your work in Torghast. You are earning access to legendary powers and then building the legendary that suits your gameplay style, working towards that goal. Then once you accomplish it,
Pokażcie
picking the
jakieś.
next goal you want to work towards and doing so.
No. Żeby miały wyglądy fajne, a nie.
nie, efekty.
This is a little bit different from, agency in other ways, but we've moved in the last few years pretty heavily away from broad class identity to a point where an arcane mage and a fire mage may have more that sets them apart than they have in common. And when you all picked the character you wanted to make, whether it was a week ago or 15 years ago, you chose to be a hunter or a rogue or a priest for some specific reason, not a marks hunter or a subtlety rogue or a discipline priest. And increasingly, that's been overly compartmentalized in ways that have restricted your ability to play the class in the way you might want to play the class. So we're going to talk about this a lot tomorrow.
Kurde, niech zrobią
at
jedną
Deep Dive
całą
Panel.
klasę,
And
bez
this
speków
means in some
żadnych.
cases, taking abilities that have become
Co?
spec specific and bringing
Na
them back
wanili
to
tak
being
było.
class-wide. In other cases,
Ze
it
drzewkiem
means returning
talentowym miałeś
abilities that were
wszystko.
taken away altogether.
I tylko jednym mogłeś grać, bo się dało. Reszta była śmieszna.
Talking about this,
To kwestia zbalansowania już
so
akurat.
sharing this at length tomorrow at our deep dive panel will be my colleague
To by
Brian
było
Holinka,
niezłe.
or as I like to call him, Holinka the Unpruner.
O,
Kolinka,
co tu
kurwa,
mamy?
idiota
Okay,
jebana.
I'm
Kurwa,
gonna go
nic nie
kind of
może
quickly
robić.
since too much time left, but leveling. So
Kogo
you
to
may
obchodzi
notice that I've
leveling?
said max level a whole bunch of times in this presentation.
Ciebie, bo
Set a
tego
number.
nie umiesz.
And some of you who've made
To
it to our
Steama
demo
połączę.
may have noticed, what the heck, I'm level 50.
Wyglądam sam.
You're level 50.
Co?
Nie!
Ścięło ci? Nie ścięło, lol.
So
Squish.
existing 120
Nie.
why are we doing this? Why these numbers? Ultimately, it's about
No,
making
spiszę
the
to
experience
levelowe.
better paced. We have hundreds of hours of
Lepiej nie
content that we've
zużywać
built in the
boosta,
game
bo się
over the
wbije na
last 15
50 od
years.
razu.
We don't want it to take hundreds of hours to get to max level.
Teraz.
We want to speed up the rate at which you level to get into endgame and give you more freedom and options in how you do that. But if you're getting a level literally every 10 minutes
Nie.
along the way, that starts to feel a bit silly. So this number allows us to better match
Ale
the
jak
content
to,
that
bo
we
nie
have
rozumiem.
that should be experienced
Teraz
on the way
masz
to max
120,
level. And also get back
jak
to
będzie
a
dodatek,
place
to będziemy
where
50.
every level, every time you fill that bar, gives you something.
Słabe.
Shadowlands?
Ale
Ale
długo
wszędzie?
będzie
Też w
widać.
Azeroth?
Wszędzie, wszędzie.
Już drzewka będą talentów.
So we also have a brand new player zone to show off some of the best of modern World of Warcraft to new players. And on your alts, we want to give you the option to play through the storyline of any single expansion in its entirety.
Proszę,
to
niech
get you
jeszcze
from
powiedzą, że
1 to 50.
w każdej
You wanna
krainie
play through
możesz być
Pandaria?
na
Play through the
jakimkolwiek
whole
levelu
thing,
chcesz.
and then go to Shadowlands.
Tak.
No, na
Świetnie
pierwszym poziomie
powiedzieli.
idę na Legion. Spoko.
Legion
Tak to
najgorszy.
wygląda na razie.
Arkus od razu.
Want to
No
talk a little
tak.
bit about visual character customization, character appearances, right? Like everyone here, you
Oglądacie,
have this
czy
powerful
nie?
connection to your WoW character. I've seen people spend
Ciekawe będzie to rozwiązanie, że będzie można
messing
50
with
to nabić
hairstyles, picking the
gdziekolwiek.
exact look, the exact facial
No.
expression, because that's your avatar in the game. That's your connection to the world. We always want to do better there. We always want to increase the fidelity. We want to give more options. And so in recent expansions, we've done things like add allied races or improve the combat animations. This time around, our focus is on
Ja
improving
mam
the
tylko nadzieję,
customization
tylko, że
that's available
50 się nie
to
będzie
the
wbijał
original
tyle,
World
co
of
teraz
Warcraft
trzeba
races.
110 czy 120.
Dokładnie tak będzie.
No jakbyś
What I
myślał.
want to share with you, I'm going to share with you a
Tak
few
będzie,
Trochę
stary,
szybciej.
work in
Nie, no to
progress
to będzie
from
identycznie
a
jak teraz.
few WoW races.
Gdzie
But the idea
dłużej
here
jest.
is just to give more options than ever before,
Robisz całego
so
Zauna
that
i tam,
you
nie
can
wiem, 5
actually
leveli
look
zaledwie.
and feel
Będziesz bił
like
tak jak
you
na
want to feel,
klasiku.
and different from the others around
takim
you who play the
tempie.
exact same race. So let's take a look at some of what's in store.
O,
Trolls.
siu.
So,
O!
Nowa
O!
so
kustomizacja.
for trolls, we want to give
Spoko.
them options.
Co to
for
proste?
skin colors,
Nie.
hair
Proste
colors,
trolle, w
hairstyles,
końcu,
Nie, to jest tak brzydkie.
body paint,
Ty,
tattoos,
czekaj.
and also amazing
Są
things
to
like
jakieś
the
kobiety,
ability
bo
to
nie
set
chcę
your eye
obrazić.
color different from the look of your face.
Co?
Because-
Ruchejdu.
I don't know.
Kurwa,
It's
człowieku,
2020.
idź.
The technology
Weź,
is finally
please.
there. What can I say?
Nie.
Co jest?
Dwarves. So
O Boże, murzyny.
Plemiona.
similarly, you want that wild camo look? Go for it. Different skin colors,
Faktycznie
hair
muzy-
colors, and more. Maybe you play
O,
an
undeady
undead,
proste.
O!
Forsaken,
O!
No.
O!
Fajnie,
and
fajnie.
w końcu
you don't want
mogę
to
dodać
have
bez
kości,
cards
da się
sticking out of
Mają
your ass.
normalne łokcie.
Bez kości.
Up to you.
Łokcie.
Jakaś tam
And
panda.
last but certainly not least in my examples, humans. Perhaps,
No nie.
Normalne ryje.
Azjatka mogę mieć.
perhaps you play a human in
Idę
World
do
of
Lens,
Warcraft
idę do Lens,
and
siemanko.
wish that you could play a character
Jaina.
that looks and feels a little bit
A,
more
kurde,
like you.
bestia.
We agree. So,
Jest w końcu normalne mordy.
Nie to
and so
wygląda.
this is the tip of the iceberg. We have many more examples to come.
Będę
And
Chinką.
this is something
Kurwa,
really that's an
murzynki
endless
zrobili.
process of
Rozumiem
improvement for
azjatkie,
us,
ale
but
murzynki?
this is a first step.
Nie.
Finally,
Za chwilę
Co?
będzie
Ale to
między
będzie.
bohatera.
I mentioned earlier that Bolvar and his Death Knights are very important to this battle that awaits
O,
us.
Death Knighta.
And
No,
so what
Death
better
Knighta, ja
time
by
to
Ty,
bolster
Może
the ranks
nowy
of Death
ten, jak to
Knights
się nazywa?
than
To
now.
wyspek.
No, chciał.
So in Shadowlands,
Nie.
everyone can be a
Whatever.
Death Knight. Pandaren,
Wszyscy.
Coherence, Andalari, Mechanome, Volpera,
Wszyscy
go
są
nuts.
dostępni.
Wszyscy.
O jest, no. No oczywiście,
O,
hyper chuj.
Zandalari, Troll, Dekacz, Broken.
All right,
Albo
that's
nie,
all I got for
ten
now.
Mechagnon.
Thank you so much for joining me on this whirlwind tour
Koniec.
of Shadowlands. Lots more information tomorrow.
Myślałem, że powiedzą spec Death Knighta,
So-
jaki będzie.
Right here
Nie
tomorrow,
będzie
we'll
żadnego.
have our deep dive panel
Jak
at
nie
11
będzie? Będzie Ranger,
just before noon,
zobaczcie.
and then Q&A and developers' tales later in the day. Enjoy BlizzCon. Have a wonderful weekend. I love you all.
Rzadki pet.
Dużo
Thank you.
Thank you for
Dużo
attending
wyboru
World of
będzie.
Warcraft. What's next? Coming up, Hearthstone. What's next?
Dobra, już wyłączyłem, bo mi się Hearthstone...
Teraz będzie Hearthstone?
Tak, ale nie chcę mi się już oglądać.
A
Obejrzę sobie
Overwatch?
jutro. Był już.
Był.
There, he was having fun.
Jak wrażenia?
And also, he
Pierwszy.
dies to an attack that I
Spoko.
Mi się dodatek na razie z tego co powiedzieli podoba, tylko myślałem, że może się pokuszą o już serię jakoś, nie wiem,
Jest
rasę,
turniej Overwatcha.
klasę, spekta.
Ale to będzie coś o tym Tinkerze, czy jakoś...
nie będzie.
Jak nic nie powiedzieli, to już
Nie ma.
To co, nie
Klasy.
będzie nowej rasy klasy?
może Allied Race.
Na turnieju grają Doomfistem wszyscy.
No Doomfist jest dobry. Nie wiedziałeś?
Nie, myślałem, że jest chujowy.
Jest dobry. Tylko nie umiesz nim grać.
Moira.
Moirą nie trzeba umieć grać. Nie trzeba celować. Powoli kogoś zabijasz i się leczysz przy tym.
Reaper wyrozpierdo.
To
Kurwa,
będziesz oglądał cosplaye?
której są?
Pierwsza coś.
No mogę. Dania wygrała z Rosją.
In Group B, what a game between these two teams.
We knew it would be close, but we didn't realize it would be that close. Denmark, they were just pipped at the post previously when they went up against China.
And there were the final moments of Russian Federation versus Denmark. Denmark, man, that game was just a box of emotions. That was so close of a match, and that could very well end up as one of the deciding matches so far in this group as well, because both Russia and Denmark are two teams looking to make it out to the playoffs tomorrow. So that could come back to haunt Russia as well. Very dominant from Denmark.
But honestly, what we saw out of Russia was
Pierwsza 15.
they showed us over the span
Co
of
pierwsza
today,
15?
very different
Cosplaye.
of strength in those
Chyba
conversations.
zostanę, też sobie obejrzę.
Które są